I saw my husband kiss her while my baby kicked inside me. And in that moment, I realized some betrayals don't break you loudly, they hollow you out in silence. I had been standing there for maybe 10 seconds, maybe 10 years. I couldn't tell. Time felt wrong, like it didn't belong to me anymore. The restaurant was warm, too warm, the kind of place where people celebrated anniversaries and promotions, where glasses clinked and laughter floated like nothing bad had ever happened under those lights. I was 7 months pregnant, my hand resting on the curve of my stomach, feeling the steady rhythm of a life that didn't deserve any of this. I wasn't supposed to be alone tonight, Daniel said. He had a late meeting, something important, something that couldn't wait. I believed him, because that's what I did. I believed him, even when the excuses started to feel rehearsed, even when the distance between us stretched into something I couldn't cross anymore. I had come anyway, told myself I'd surprise him. Maybe we could still fix this. Maybe if I reminded him of who we used to be before everything got quiet and cold, before I started feeling like a guest in my own marriage. And then I saw him, not across the room, not hidden in a corner, but right there in the center, like he belonged, like this was exactly where he was meant to be. His hand resting too comfortably on her back, her head tilted toward him, like she had nothing to question, nothing to doubt. She was smiling, the kind of smile I used to think was mine. And he smiled back, like it came easy, like it didn't cost him anything at all. My fingers tightened around the strap of my purse. I felt it, then a small kick, sharp and sudden, like my body reminding me, you're not alone, even if it feels that way. I wanted to turn around. I should have turned around, but I couldn't. Something held me there. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was the need to hear him deny it, to say this wasn't what it looked like. But he didn't look guilty. He didn't hesitate. He leaned in closer, said something that made her laugh, soft and bright and real. And that's when it hit me, not like a crash, not like a scream, but like something quietly collapsing inside my chest. I didn't cry, not there. I just stood there, breathing too fast, feeling too much, and somehow nothing at all at the same time. My reflection caught in the glass behind them, pale, eyes wide, lips slightly parted, like I was trying to say something, but forgot how. And for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to disappear in a room full of people, because no one saw me, not him, not her, not anyone. And maybe that was the worst part. Not the betrayal, not the lies, but how easy it was for him to live like I wasn't even there anymore. I do not remember deciding to move, but suddenly I was walking toward them, each step feeling like it belonged to someone else, my hand still resting on my stomach, as if I could shield the baby from what I was about to see, from what I was about to become. The closer I got, the louder everything felt, the clinking glasses, the low conversations, the soft music playing somewhere above us like a cruel joke. And then he looked up. Daniel looked straight at me, and for a second, just 1 second, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe guilt, maybe nothing at all. It was gone too fast. Emily. He said my name like it was an inconvenience, like I had shown up at the wrong time instead of the right life. I stopped at the edge of the table, my throat dry, my voice somewhere far away. I waited for him to stand, to explain, to fix this, but he stayed exactly where he was, his arm still resting behind her chair, like it belonged there, like she belonged there. And I did not. I thought you had a meeting. I said. The words sounded small, even to me, like they were not strong enough to hold the truth. He exhaled, slowly glanced at the woman beside him, then back at me. This is not a good time, Emily, not a good time. The words echoed in my head louder than anything else. Not a good time, as if there would ever be a good time for this, as if betrayal came with a schedule. The woman turned, slightly looking at me with polite confusion, the kind you give a stranger who interrupts something important. And Daniel did not correct her. He did not introduce me, not as his wife, not as anything. He just sat there, letting the silence stretch until it became something sharp and unbearable. I felt it again, another small movement beneath my hand, a reminder, a quiet insistence that I was still here, that this mattered, even if he refused to see it. I am your wife. I said it softly, not loud enough for the whole room, but enough for him, enough for the truth to exist between us. His jaw tightened, not with regret, but with irritation, like I had forced him into something he did not want to deal with. Emily, please do not do this here. He leaned back slightly, as if creating distance, as if I was the problem, as if I was the one making a scene, and not the one standing in it. The woman looked between us, now understanding dawning slowly, her smile fading into something uncertain. I should go, she murmured, but he reached for her hand, gently stopping her. No, you do not have to leave. He said it calmly, like he was reassuring her, not me, like I was the outsider intruding on something that had nothing to do with me. And that was when something inside me shifted, not shattered, not broken, just shifted into place like a truth I could not unsee anymore. I nodded once, slow, controlled, because if I stayed any longer, I might fall apart right there in front of them, and I refused to give him that. I refused to let him see me disappear, so I turned. I walked away, each step heavier than the last, my vision blurring, but I did not stop. I did not look back, not when I reached the door, not when the cool night air hit my skin, not even when I finally stepped outside into the quiet where the city lights felt too bright and too distant at the same time. I stood there breathing, trying to remember how to exist in a world that had just erased me, and that was when I felt it again, stronger this time, a steady movement beneath my ribs, and I pressed my hand there, closing my eyes, because suddenly I understood I was not walking away alone anymore, and whatever came next, I would have to survive it for both of us. I told myself to keep walking, just keep moving, one foot in front of the other, like if I stopped even for a second, everything would catch up to me. The tears, the questions, the weight of what I had just seen. The city felt different outside, colder, sharper, like it had no patience for people who broke. Quietly, I wrapped my arms around myself, not because it was freezing, but because I needed something to hold on to, something real. The sidewalk stretched ahead of me, lit by streetlights that flickered just enough to make everything feel uncertain. I reached the curb and paused, the traffic light glowing red across the street, cars passing by in steady lines, their headlights blurring together like a river. I could not step into. My phone buzzed in my purse, the sound slicing through the silence. I did not have to check. I knew it was him. Daniel always called when it was convenient for him, always after the damage was already done. I let it ring once, twice, three times before it stopped. A message notification followed immediately. I did not open it, not yet. I was not ready to hear whatever version of the truth he decided to give me tonight. Another step forward, another breath. I crossed the street slowly, aware of every movement of my body, the way my back ached, the way my feet felt heavier than they should, 7 months pregnant, and suddenly the world felt too big, too unforgiving. I reached the other side and kept walking, not toward home, I realized after a few seconds, but away from it, away from everything that reminded me of him. I passed a row of closed storefronts, dark windows reflecting a version of me I barely recognized, my hair slightly disheveled, my face pale, my eyes distant, like I had already left something behind. And maybe I had. The phone buzzed again. This time, I stopped, my hand trembling slightly. As I pulled it out, his name filled the screen. I stared at it for a long moment before opening the message. Emily, we need to talk. The words felt empty, flat, like something copied and pasted from a script that no longer meant anything to me. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. He always needed to talk when he was about to explain why I was wrong, why I misunderstood, why I should stay. I locked the screen without replying. My chest felt tight, not from panic, not from fear, but from something heavier, something final. I slipped the phone back into my purse and kept walking, the sound of my footsteps echoing softly against the pavement. That was when I noticed them, 2 men standing near the corner ahead, not doing anything obvious, not saying anything, but their presence felt wrong, like they did not belong in the quiet rhythm of the street. One of them glanced in my direction, then looked away too quickly. I slowed my pace, just slightly, my instincts sharpening in a way I had learned not to ignore. The city taught you that, taught you to feel when something was off. I adjusted my grip on my purse, my other hand instinctively moving to my stomach, as if I could shield the life inside me from something I could not yet name. I told myself it was nothing, just strangers, just a coincidence, but the feeling did not go away. It stayed with me, low and persistent, like a warning I could not silence. And for the first time since I walked out of that restaurant, I felt something other than heartbreak. I felt the quiet edge of danger, and I realized I was not as alone out here as I thought. I told myself not to look back, but I felt it anyway, that shift in the air, the kind that makes your skin tighten before your mind catches up. I kept walking steady, not too fast, not too slow, the way you do when you do not want to draw attention but cannot afford to ignore it either. My footsteps echoed against the pavement, softer now, because I was listening to something else, the faint rhythm behind me, not close, not obvious, just enough to exist. I glanced at the reflection in a dark storefront window, and there they were again, not right behind me, but closer than before, one of them speaking quietly to the other, their heads slightly turned in my direction. My chest tightened, not panic, not yet, just awareness, sharp and immediate. I adjusted my path, crossing the street again. Without waiting for the light, a car honked somewhere in the distance, but I barely registered it, my focus narrowing to the space around me, the distance between me and them, the way their movement seemed to match mine, just enough to feel intentional. My hand pressed gently against my stomach, a silent instinct, a promise to protect what I could not see. but could feel so clearly I needed somewhere public, somewhere safe. I scanned ahead, a small convenience store on the corner, lights still on, a few people inside. That would do. I quickened my pace just slightly enough to close the distance without making it obvious. The door chimed softly when I stepped inside, the warmth hitting my skin like a shield. I exhaled slowly, forcing my shoulders to relax, as if nothing was wrong, as if I had simply come in to buy something ordinary. I moved toward the aisle, pretending to browse, but my eyes flicked toward the window. They stopped outside, not entering, just standing there. One of them glanced in through the glass, then away, like he was waiting, like he did not need to rush. My pulse climbed higher, now steady, but undeniable. I reached for a bottle of water. I did not need, just to give my hands something to do, something to hold. The cashier barely looked up as I approached. I placed the bottle on the counter, my fingers trembling just enough that I had to steady them against the surface. "You okay?" he asked casually, not really looking, just saying words people say. Without expecting an answer, I nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just tired," he shrugged, already moving on. Already done with me, like I was just another passing moment. I paid and stepped back, the bottle cool against my palm, grounding me for a second. I could stay here, wait it out, call someone. But who? Daniel? The thought felt almost laughable now. The door chimed again behind me, and I froze, not turning, not yet, just listening. Footsteps, slower, heavier, closer than before. I felt it before I saw it, that presence, that certainty that whatever this was, it was not going to fade quietly into the night. I turned slowly, my breath catching just slightly, and that was when everything changed, not because of them, but because of the man who stepped in behind them, tall, composed, dressed in dark lines that spoke of control rather than effort. His eyes moved once across the room, and then settled on me, like he already knew, like he had already seen everything. And in that single moment, the air shifted again, not with fear this time, but with something else, something colder, something controlled, something that made the two men near the door straighten just slightly, like they had just realized they were no longer the ones in control. And I did not know who he was or why he was there, but for the first time that night I felt it, the faintest sense that maybe, just maybe, I was not invisible anymore. I did not know his name, but I felt his presence before he even spoke, the kind of presence that did not need volume to be noticed, the kind that made people adjust without realizing they were doing it. The two men near the door shifted slightly, their posture tightening, their attention no longer on me, but on him, like something invisible had just drawn a line between what they could do and what they should not even try. The man stepped forward, not rushed, not hesitant, just certain, every movement measured, like he had all the time in the world. His gaze flicked once toward me, then back to them, calm, unreadable, but heavy enough to make the air feel different. One of the men cleared his throat, glancing toward the exit, as if reconsidering something that had seemed simple just moments ago. "We were just leaving," he said quickly, his voice losing some of the quiet confidence it had earlier. The man did not respond right away. He simply looked at them for a second longer, and that silence said more than anything else could, the kind of silence that forces people to fill it with their own doubt, with their own realization that they might have stepped somewhere they did not belong. After a brief pause, they moved, one of them pushing the door open, the other following without another word. The bell chimed softly behind them, and just like that, they were gone. No confrontation, no raised voices, just absence, like whatever intention they carried had been erased. The moment he walked in, I let out a breath. I did not realize I had been holding my grip, tightening slightly around the bottle in my hand. The man turned then fully, this time his attention settling on me in a way that felt deliberate, not invasive, not careless, just aware. He stepped closer, but not too close, leaving space, like he understood boundaries without needing them. Explained, "You should not be walking alone this late." His voice was low, controlled, the kind that did not ask for attention, but received it anyway. I blinked, slightly caught off guard, not just by what he said, but by how he said it, like it was a fact, not a question. "I am fine," I replied automatically, the same response I had given countless times before, even when I was not fine, even when everything inside me said otherwise. His eyes moved briefly to my stomach, then back to my face, not lingering, not judging, just noticing. And in that brief moment, something shifted again, not in the room, but in me, because for the first time that night, someone had actually seen me, not just the situation, not just the moment, but me. "You are not fine," he said simply, not harsh, not soft, just certain. The words settled somewhere deeper than I expected, and I felt my defenses rise, out of habit, out of necessity. "I do not even know you," I said quietly, my voice steadier than I felt. He nodded once, like he expected that, like it changed nothing. "That is true," he agreed. Then, after a slight pause, "Neither do the men who were outside the simplicity of that statement cut through everything else, leaving no room for denial, no room for pretending. This was just coincidence, I swallowed, my gaze dropping briefly before returning to his face, trying to understand him, trying to place him, but there was nothing familiar about him, nothing easy to define. He was dressed in a dark suit, not flashy, not loud, but precise, like everything about him had purpose. Even his stillness felt intentional. Why did you help me? I asked the question, leaving my lips before I could stop it, because I needed to understand, because nothing about this night made sense anymore. His expression did not change, but something in his eyes shifted slightly, something almost human, because someone should have, he said, and for a moment, just a moment, the noise of everything else faded, the betrayal, the fear, the confusion, all of it quieting under the weight of something simple, something undeniable. And I realized then that whatever this was, whatever had just started, it was not random, it was not nothing, and somehow, without understanding how, I had stepped into something that was going to change everything. The silence after his words lingered longer than it should have, like the world itself was waiting for me to decide what to do next. I shifted my weight slightly, the bottle still cold in my hand, grounding me in a moment that felt too sharp to be real. I should have thanked him, I should have walked away, but my feet did not move, not yet, because something about him made leaving feel unfinished, like I would be stepping away from an answer I did not even know I needed. What is your name? I asked. The question came out quieter than I intended, but steady enough. He studied me for a brief second, as if measuring something, not my fear, not my situation, but me. Adrian, he said simply. No last name, no explanation, just a name that seemed to carry more weight than it should have. I nodded once, like that was enough, even though it was not. And you are, he added, not demanding, just asking. Emily, I replied, my voice soft, but clearer than before. Saying my name felt different now, like I was reclaiming something I had almost lost. His gaze held mine for a moment longer, then shifted slightly toward the door, as if checking something I could not see. You have somewhere safe to go? He asked. I hesitated, because the answer was complicated, because home did not feel like home anymore, because the person who was supposed to be there was no longer someone I could trust. One will figure it out, I said finally, the words automatic, but empty. He did not respond right away, and that silence again, it was not uncomfortable, it was intentional, like he was giving me space to hear my own answer. Before he spoke, you should not have to figure it out tonight, he said calmly, the certainty in his voice unsettled me more than anything else, not because it was threatening, but because it was unfamiliar. I was not used to someone stating things like that, as if my safety mattered, as if I mattered. I am fine, I repeated, softer this time, less convincing, even to myself. His expression did not change, but something in his posture shifted slightly, like he had already decided something I had not agreed to yet. Then, at least let me make sure you get where you are going safely, he said. It was not a command, but it was not entirely a suggestion either. It sat somewhere in between, a line I was not sure how to cross. I opened my mouth to refuse, out of habit, out of pride, out of the instinct to not rely on anyone, but the words did not come, because the truth was simple. I was tired, too tired to pretend I could handle everything alone, too tired to keep pretending that nothing had just broken inside me. Okay, I said finally, the word barely above a whisper, but it changed everything. His head inclined slightly, like he expected that, like he knew I would reach this point eventually. He stepped aside, gesturing subtly toward the door. After you. The small gesture caught me off guard, not because it was dramatic, but because it was deliberate, respectful, controlled. I moved toward the exit, my heartbeat steady, but different now, not racing, not panic, just aware of every step. The night air met us again, cooler, sharper, but it did not feel as overwhelming as before. A black car waited at the curb, engine running quiet, and still, like it had been there the whole time, like it belonged to him, like everything around him seemed to fall into place without effort. He opened the rear door without a word, and I paused just for a second, my hand instinctively moving to my stomach, feeling that small, steady life beneath my palm, reminding me of what mattered, reminding me that this was no longer just about me. I looked at him one more time, searching for something, doubt, maybe uncertainty, but there was none, only that same calm presence that had shifted everything the moment he walked in, and for reasons I could not fully explain, I trusted it, not completely, not blindly, but enough to take a step forward, enough to get into the car, enough to let this night become something more than just the moment. Everything fell apart. The door closed softly behind me, and the world outside disappeared like it had never existed. The quiet inside the car felt different, not empty, not heavy, just controlled, the kind of silence that did not need to prove anything. I sat carefully, my hand resting on my stomach out of instinct more than thought, feeling the faint, steady presence beneath my palm, reminding me I was not alone, even if everything else felt uncertain. Adrian slid into the seat across from me, not too close, not distant, just enough space to breathe. The door shut, and the car began to move, smooth and quiet, like the city itself had decided not to interfere. I watched the lights pass by outside the window, blurred streaks of white and gold stretching across the glass like moments I could not hold on to, my reflection faintly visible over them, my eyes still wide, still trying to process everything that had shifted in the last hour. "You can tell me where you want to go," he said, his voice low, steady, pulling me back from the noise in my head. I hesitated because the answer was not simple, because there was no place that felt right anymore. Home was not safe, not in the way it was supposed to be, and anywhere else felt temporary, like I would just be delaying something inevitable. "I do not think I have somewhere," I said finally, the words heavier than I expected. Admitting it out loud made it real, made it undeniable. He nodded, once not surprised, not judging, just accepting the truth as it was. "Then we will fix that," he said, the certainty in his voice did not feel like pressure, it felt like structure, like something solid placed in front of me when everything else had been taken away. I should have questioned him. I should have asked why or how or what that meant. But I did not, because I was tired, because I did not have the strength to argue against something that felt like stability. For the first time that night, the car turned onto a quieter street, the noise of the city fading, slightly replaced by something calmer, something distant. I shifted in my seat, a small discomfort pulling at my lower back, a reminder of how long this day had been, of how much my body had carried. Without complaint, Adrian noticed the movement, not in an obvious way, not staring, not asking too many questions, but his attention shifted just enough. "Do you need anything?" he asked simply. I shook my head automatically, then paused. "Actually, I just need a minute," I admitted softly, the truth slipping out before I could stop it. He leaned back, slightly giving me space, without making it feel like distance. "Take all the time you need," he said. And again, that quiet certainty settled around me, not overwhelming, not intrusive, just there. I closed my eyes for a second, letting the movement of the car steady my breathing in and out, slow, controlled, the way I had practiced in quiet moments, preparing for something that suddenly felt much closer, much more real. Another small movement beneath my hand, softer this time, but present, and I pressed my palm there, gently grounding myself in something that had not changed, something that still belonged to me. When I opened my eyes again, I realized something that I had not allowed myself to think before. I was safe. Not completely, not permanently, but in this moment, in this car, with this stranger who did not feel like a stranger anymore. I was safe, and that realization settled deep inside me, quiet but undeniable, changing something I could not yet name, but knew I would not be able to ignore. The car slowed gradually, the movement becoming softer, until it finally came to a quiet stop. I opened my eyes fully, the city outside no longer rushing past, but standing still in front of me, tall glass windows, warm lights, and a building that looked too clean, too untouched by everything I had just lived through. I hesitated, my hand still resting on my stomach, as if I needed that reminder before stepping into something new. Adrian stepped out first, then opened my door again, that same deliberate calm in every movement, no rush, no pressure, just presence. "We are here," he said simply. I looked up at the building, then back at him. "This is not my place," I said quietly, the words almost automatic, because nothing about this felt like it belonged to me, not anymore, not after everything. He held my gaze for a moment, then nodded. "I know," he replied, and for some reason, that made it easier, not harder. I stepped out slowly, my legs adjusting to the stillness after the motion, the night air cooler here, quieter, like the city had pulled back just enough to let me breathe. We walked inside. The lobby was quiet, polished marble floors, soft lighting, everything carefully placed, like nothing here happened by accident. I became aware of myself again, the way I looked, the way I felt out of place, carrying a life inside me, while everything else in my world had just fallen apart. Adrian spoke briefly to someone at the front desk, his voice low, controlled. I could not hear the words, but I saw the reaction, immediate, respectful, a nod, a key card handed over without question. I stood there, unsure what to do with my hands, with my thoughts, with everything. He returned to me, holding the card. "This is yours tonight," he said, extending it toward me. I did not take it right away, my eyes moving from the card to his face. "Why are you doing this?" I asked again, softer this time, not defensive, not suspicious, just searching. He did not answer immediately, and For a second I thought maybe he would not answer at all, but then he spoke, not looking away, because you need somewhere safe to rest. And because no one should have to face a night like this alone. The simplicity of it made something tighten in my chest, not pain, not exactly something else, something unfamiliar, something that felt like being seen. Without having to ask for it, I reached out, then my fingers brushing his briefly. As I took the card, the contact was light, almost nothing, but it grounded me more than I expected. Thank you, I said, the words quiet but real. He inclined his head slightly, like it was enough, like nothing more needed to be said. The elevator ride was silent, but not heavy. I stood beside him, the numbers rising slowly, each second stretching just enough for me to feel the shift happening inside me. When the doors opened, he walked with me down the hallway, stopping in front of a door and stepping aside so I could go first. Another small gesture, another moment where control did not feel like control but choice. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was simple but warm, soft lighting, clean lines, a space that felt untouched by everything outside. I turned back to him, standing just beyond the threshold. Not stepping in, not assuming anything. I will be downstairs if you need anything, he said, his voice steady but quieter now, like the night itself had softened around us. I nodded, not trusting myself to say more, because I was not sure what more there was to say. He turned then, ready to leave, and something in me reacted before I could think. Adrian, I said, his name, stopping him. He looked back, not impatient, not surprised, just waiting. I hesitated for a second, my hand resting again on my stomach, feeling that small, steady presence, reminding me of what mattered, reminding me that this moment mattered too. I am not used to this, I admitted quietly, not used to someone staying, not used to someone choosing to help. He studied me for a brief moment, then nodded. Once you will learn, he said, and there was something in his voice, not a promise, not exactly, but close enough that I felt it settle somewhere deep inside me. And as he walked away, leaving me standing in that doorway, I realized something had already changed. Not everything, not the past, not the pain, but something quiet and steady had begun, and I was no longer sure where it would lead. I stood there for a long moment after the door closed behind him, to the quiet settling into the room, like something unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. I exhaled slowly, my shoulders dropping for the first time that night, as if my body finally understood it was allowed to rest. I placed my bag down carefully on the chair near the door, my movements slower, now more deliberate. Like I was afraid that if I moved too fast, everything would come rushing back. I walked further into the room, my hand still resting on my stomach, the soft rhythm beneath my palm, grounding me, reminding me that no matter what had happened tonight, I still had something that mattered more than anything else. I sat down on the edge of the bed, the mattress dipping slightly beneath my weight, and for a second, I just stayed there, staring at nothing, listening to the silence, because it was different from the silence I had known before. This one was not empty, it was safe. My phone buzzed again, the sound cutting through the calm, like a reminder that the world outside had not stopped. I reached into my bag, slowly pulling it out, already knowing what I would see. Daniel, his name, filled the screen again, persistent, insistent, like he still believed he had the right to reach me. I stared at it longer this time, my thumb hovering over the screen as memories tried to push their way in, the good ones, the ones that made everything harder to let go, but they felt distant now, like something I had already outgrown. I opened the message this time. Emily, please answer me, you left. Without letting me explain, I read it once, then again, and something inside me settled, not anger, not pain, just clarity. Because there was nothing left to explain, nothing that would make what I saw disappear, nothing that would give me back what had already been taken. I locked the screen without replying and set the phone down beside me, the silence returning stronger than before, but now it felt like mine. I leaned back slowly against the headboard, my body heavy with exhaustion, my mind finally beginning to quiet. I closed my eyes for a moment and felt it again, a small, steady movement beneath my hand, stronger this time, more certain, like a reminder that life was still moving forward, even if I did not know how to yet. I opened my eyes and looked around the room again, really looked this time at the clean lines, the soft light, the space that had been given to me without condition, without expectation, and I realized something I had not allowed myself to think before. I had been given a choice tonight, not by Daniel, not by the life I thought I had, but by something unexpected, something I did not understand yet, but felt real. I could go back, I could answer the calls, listen to the explanations, try to hold on to something that had already slipped away, or I could step into something new, something uncertain, but honest. I inhaled slowly, the air filling my lungs, steady, grounding, and for the first time that night, I made a decision, not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and firm. I was not going back. Not to him, not to the version of myself that stayed silent and unseen. I reached for the lamp beside the bed, turning it off, the room dimming into a softer shadow as I lay back fully, my hand still resting protectively over my stomach, my eyes drifting toward the ceiling as the weight of everything finally began to settle into something I could carry. Tomorrow would not be easy. I knew that nothing about what came next would be simple, but for the first time in a long time, I was not afraid of it. Because somewhere between the moment everything broke and the moment I stepped into this room, I had found something I did not know I had lost. And as sleep slowly pulled me under, the last thought that stayed with me was not about Daniel, not about the past, but about the man who had stepped into a moment that was not his and changed it without asking for anything in return. And I realized that sometimes the person who saves you is not the one you built your life with, but the one who sees you when your life falls apart and chooses not to look away.